Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Got to turn up my mic. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey.
Wednesday, right?
It is Wednesday.
I'm sure I'm showing up for the right thing.
You are showing up for the right thing. Just say, let us know where you're listening from and say good morning.
Make sure we got connected properly.
Yeah.
We're running a little bit late and had to get some extra wires plugged in. And so we're just a little discombobulated. That's the word of the day. That's your Wednesday word.
Wednesday word for the day.
Yeah.
We have a couple of other
Chantel.
words that we'll be using later.
Yeah.
Yeah, other words. Good morning, Shelley. Good morning, JR.
Good morning in Corpus Christi,
In
Texas.
Corpus Christi.
Glad to have you present.
Absolutely. So announcement stuff. We have a little over a week left. If you have not gotten your tickets for the event at the end of the month on the 30th, and it's like an absolutely every dealer
Right.
would benefit from participating in this. It's not really for sales managers, anyone. This is dealer specific about how to make your business more sustainable, stronger, and conveyable.
Yeah. Or even just spend a little more time away from the dealership. So
Yeah.
we'll be getting the word out about that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be making a hard push in the next week to get folks in there because we know they're going to find it highly valuable. One quick thing, I did make a change on the agenda yesterday. Session number 3, the one about KPIs. We're just tweaking that a little bit in terms of the title and the content, but that's it. We'll get the word out about that.
Absolutely. Like really a lot of 20 plus people will be joining us as contributors. So I really
looks like we got
that.
Texas well represented this morning.
Absolutely.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Anything else? Friday,
Chuck Bonanno.
And it's the new executive director of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited about that.
Yeah.
And
Looking forward to catching up.
we have a couple other people that we're just trying to nail down some times in the near future to get them on the show before the end of the month.
Yeah.
So, okay. Our topic for today.
Yeah.
Well,
I can kind of introduce. Sure. So our subject today is White Hat Way, and really talking about that as our overarching purpose in what we do.
Or why.
That's our big why. That's the kind of the driver behind what we do. And, my early influences have kind of shaped that. And when we talk about White Hat Way, one of the things I'm mindful of is, we talk about striving to do things the White Hat Way. We don't use the word striving enough. Like we get it. None of us are perfect. And
is that the first word? Striving.
It's like, we're all trying. I mean, none of us out there are perfect, and we're making mistakes. And when I talk about my grandfather today, he was a hell of a guy, and just, the epitome of what I think of when I think about the Gentleman Cowboy. So we're going to talk about Pablo Trujillo and kind of how he, as a role model for me, has shaped how I view a white hat cowboy, and why, I've chosen that sort of metaphor as sort of emblematic of operating from a place of principle. So that's just, and so we're all striving to do it. And like I say, none of us are perfect, but the idea is, especially for you and I working in the Buy Here, Pay Here segment, we know the Buy Here, Pay Here segment as a pocket of the used car industry has, a lot of negative connotations around it. And we kind of feel like we see that both from the consumer side. We understand what that looks like a little bit from the consumer side. Obviously, we've lived in it and I'm a former dealer myself. So we understand that. And I think what we're trying to really introduce, 2 things for me. Let's introduce, in the same way that you hear Gary Vaynerchuk, for those who don't follow Gary V, Gary's out there telling the story about kindness in business. And,
heart.
And he's bringing a lot of heart. And we're really doing the same thing. So with White Hat Way, this is not the first time we've talked about White Hat Way. People have heard about it, and we talked about, we're going to try to read the thing from the website. We've got at the BHPH Institute a page on the White Hat Way that you kind of read a little bit about, just, have some text that explains, what that's about. But yeah, it's really For me, it's also proving to the industry, and we're starting with buy here, pay here. What we're going to talk about today in White Hat Way is really much bigger than buy here, pay here. It's really bigger than automotive. This is about just um, being able to take this sort of approach into business,
Yeah.
and in caring for others, we can do that. And so that's really what we're just setting out to prove, is that by treating customers well, and also there's an impact for our employees in all of this.
Mhm.
But when we bring this white hat approach, which is about principles and ethics and all the other things that are part of the white hat thing, you want to roll that
Yeah.
little ticker. So that's part of how, we think about, what does it mean to be a good, a dealer who's operating in the white hat way. There are some of the kind of the anchor words that we use in talking about that. And so again, my grandfather Pablo Trujillo was somebody who, really embodied a lot of those adjectives that you might see,
Mhm.
or definitions. So you want to read the thing?
Well, first off, I wanted to just iterate that we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, that everything that we are building or have built thus far are this is the foundation, and it all leads back to this, and it leads back to what it is that we're trying to accomplish through the White Hat Way, and that is creating a shift in the industry, creating or helping to inspire a change,
Mhm.
a movement of
Mhm.
some kind of bringing values and principles and this whole thing of which I'm going to read in just a second into the buy here, pay here space. And um, and it really, as we Jim and I spend, we have a lot of brainstorming sessions, and we spend a lot of time and emotion and energy into what is it that we want to do, what is it that we want to accomplish, and it's not all like business, dollar KPI or not
ROI.
ROIs. Thank you. It's about what do we want to speak, what do we want to convey?
Mhm.
What do we want to instill? What do we want to inspire? And that's the bigger thing here. And so the White Hat Way are those principles. And so I'm just going to go through this on the Buy Here, Pay Here, or BHPHinstitute.com, which is where we have our online learning platform. There is a tab that says White Hat Way. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of this. And Jim wrote this a couple of years back.
Mhm.
It says cowboys or ranchers and cowboys of the plains have traditionally been associated with integrity and strong moral character. With cowboys, the ones with white hats are viewed as being the same ones who will offer a helping hand without hesitation. Plus, white hats were worn by the good guys in the Hollywood versions of the Wild West. The sheriffs and marshals in often lawless lands were bound by a higher code of ethics. Their moral code was internal in the fiber of their being, with the understanding of what was right.
We can stop there for a minute, because I think that's, the Hollywood version. We'll spend more
Mhm.
time on that down the line. But yeah, I think that's a good place to start in terms of understanding that I was introduced to that sort of behavior at a young age. Like
You'd watch the
I
old westerns
witnessed,
and
well,
stuff, or
and also
yeah, just
lived around, sure enough, cowboys
yeah.
and white hat gentlemen who were good humans.
And well, when we talked about really, we talk about White Hat Way an awful lot. We really wanted to be able to give a very just articulate it in a way that people can really grasp
Mhm.
all of the pieces that are part of this. And when you say you were raised around that, it wasn't just your grandparent or wasn't just your grandpa, but it was other things. It was Jim was raised in the panhandle of Oklahoma. This is like middle of Dust Bowl America
Mhm.
during the Depression. And it's flat and small communities. It has amazed me because those of you guys who watch know that we were spending a month or so at his mom's house, helping out there for a little bit before we came back to Utah. And everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows each other. Everybody knows each other's, like, well, this is the kid of so-and-so and the kid of so-and-so, and their great granddaughter is now in Hollywood, or they're da 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 da, and so everyone knows everyone, and everyone waves.
Yeah.
Everyone waves. You wave from your car and people wave back. You
Yeah.
wave from all of the stuff. And so we wanted to focus more a bit on Jim's grandparents his grandpa ran a ranch. It was a cattle ranch. And what was the name of Anchor D?
The Anchor D
The
Ranch.
Anchor D Ranch. And it's been fun to go and see some of these places and hear the stories, and listening to Jim's mom talk about being raised on the ranch. She was one of many children and raised on this ranch, where it was about, just from my perspective, if I can, just from the stories, it was about really, to the core, down to earth people, hardworking people, people that, I mean, it's like, you put in a hard day's worth of work, and there was appreciation and all of that. And you talk about your grandpa, and I'm going to give you some perspective from some of the things that we've talked about since.
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work. Sure. It was a 55,000 acre cattle ranch, and grandpa always had, a team of cowboys around. They were in the bunkhouse. And so he basically managed a team of cowboys, and they ran these various parts of the ranch, and certainly we're dealing with cattle. So we were out there all the time when they were, branding or cutting calves or whatever. And so it was just part of the way of life there. And there was usually beef on the table, by the way. So, part of the thing. But yeah, it was just to watch him and kind of the character that he portrayed, like the way I saw him. And again, he wasn't a perfect guy. But he was so widely respected. I mean, people just admired him on so many levels. Always was the devoutly Catholic, and they were always at church on Sunday, and he had his white felt hat, for church on Sunday. But really it was about this kind of, here's this tough guy who just really didn't want to retire. I mean, just was totally enjoying what he was doing, had some kind of health things, and family kind of urged him to go ahead and retire. But just watching him go through that, I was probably a teenager when he was retiring, and he passed away. I think he passed away in about 94, but lived to be, 94. I think he was born in 1900, lived to be 94. And so he just had a full life and a rich life. And like I say, he just was personable. He would talk to people everywhere, and people just admired him. And of course, he was Spanish. And so that's where the thing about the caballero comes in. If you're, caballero is like this Spanish version of a gentleman cowboy. And I just think that really is kind of the way I think of him.
Yeah. And, from listening to the stories from Jim's mom and from Jim, some of the things that I have really learned to appreciate is that he had a set of principles and standards that he, there were certain things that needed to be done, and they needed to be done a certain way. And because that he held everything within the household and on the ranch to a certain standard, because he had, he just had like really high ethics, and that he just wanted to make sure that he gave his best. And what I've seen is that he also was fair. He was, it was like, this is what needs to happen, but he was fair, and he was kind, and he was loving at the same time of being solid and strong in his principles, and very direct in, what was expected. And that when, the stories that I've heard, it's like, if there was something that came up, there was a consequence, but there was also a distinct, this is the consequence to the thing, but was tempered with, I still appreciate you, kind of thing. I mean, it just that from the stories, that it's like he wants to be able to help people get better,
Yeah.
And you fell down. Great. Let's get up. Let's fix this. I will do what I can to help. But this is your consequence, and let's do better. And
Yeah.
how can I help you do better, kind of thing.
Yeah, of course, I was a young person. I
Mhm.
was only seeing him through the eyes of a grandson, and I never really saw him upset, except there was one exception. There was a time that my brother and I got new pellet guns, and we went out to the barn on the ranch, and we were shooting birds out of the rafters, and we were punching holes in the tin roof of the barn. And he came around and got on us pretty good about that one. Then we put the guns away, but that was about as excited or upset as I'd seen him get. But yeah, he was, very kind man. And just, I think the thing that as far as how it relates to what the work that we do or the work that any of us do, is like, he just was somebody who you respected. He was kind. He was tough. You knew
he was hard. I mean, it was like, just from the stories from your mom, it's like, this is what's expected.
Yeah.
He was very clear.
Yeah.
He was very clear about what was expected.
Yeah.
And then he held people to that. It's like this. Do you agree? Okay. This is the standard.
And you're
then.
kind of talking about the disciplinary element. I'm thinking more just about how he carried himself in the community. Like, we just go to town and he just, was revered, and people just loved him. And, so would, make time to talk to him. And of course he was bilingual and really was connected to the Spanish community as well, but he just hardly knew a stranger. He just talked to everybody and make friends everywhere.
Your mom talks about that. And the kind of person too, that and this kind of came from community, and I've seen this as well, is that he was someone that if he saw someone broken down on the side of the road, he'd stop. What can I do to help?
Yeah. And I would say that was true of most of the cowboy types in that country. There was farmers and ranchers, and pretty much you would have that in that area. That was part of the fiber, of the people. And the area I grew up in, Western Oklahoma, is not alone in that. You'd find that elsewhere too. But it's like, it was just very much a community thing. A lot of miles between homes, and people just kind of took care of each other and checked on each other. And it was just the nature of the way that thing worked. But yeah, I think for me, that was part of what, when we talk about all these things about, having integrity and what does it mean to have character, those are the things that I really point to in terms of my own role models and the way I think of integrity. And for me, integrity, first and foremost, is just like being consistent and being solid, and so that's what I think about when I think about those people. When I think about my grandpa Pablo, just was super consistent, very reliable, in his character, and just, honest. And again, not a perfect guy, but just was certainly, doing his best to provide for his family, provide for his neighbors, care for his neighbors and friends. And so that was part of what we saw. So I just think there's an opportunity in that for us when we carry that sort of approach into our business. And then there's also the heart piece that we haven't talked about much today, but I would just say one of the things that Michelle and I are doing in all of our work is to try to get our dealer clients and anybody who listens to get more comfortable with the idea of bringing their heart into their business.
We've had some conversations recently, because like I said, we do a lot of brainstorming and discussing things, and we were talking about how there can be a misperception about what heart means. And I see from just some of my observations of conversations we've had, and just observing people. Sometimes people think of, when you say heart, you mean soft, that you mean pushover, that you mean, just like spineless, or those it's like, so you're like a bleeding heart, or that kind of thing. And it's like, this is not what it is that we are talking about. It's and as we look at like, I'm going to pull this back up, the banners, as we've talked about what heart means to us. Heart means all of these things. It means being authentic and fair and consistent and kind and honest, compassionate, having empathy, having high moral character, transparency, goodwill, generosity, and humility. None of those things are soft.
Yeah.
None of those
Humility is
things are.
an important one
Mhm.
because, yeah, it's one thing to, when we really care about the folks that we
Mhm.
serve in our business
Mhm.
and that includes our employees,
Mhm.
then when we think about that, then we make it about them. It's really not about us. And it's about, creating experience. So yeah, the thing about the soft, spineless thing is like you recognize that, like in my dealership, I've said in my own management career, outside of the car business, whatever, I've used the words again and again about being fair and consistent. And I just
Oh,
kind of made
yeah.
up my mind from day one in my business. I wasn't going to play favorites. Everybody's going to get the same treatment, which is going to be excellent treatment. And we're just not going to do for one what we wouldn't do for another.
Mhm.
And so that just means very fair and consistent. But that doesn't mean we didn't make all those decisions from a place of heart. And
Mhm.
so that's why it's you can love your customers, you can love your employees, you still are consistent with them. And so there's nothing here about being soft, and there's nothing here about like that bleeding heart thing. We just think it's good business, especially in buy here, pay here, because in buy here, pay here, we feel like it's appropriate to play a long game.
Mhm.
And so to play a long game, we really need to have a level of relationship with our customer that allows us to do that, build some level of trust
Mhm.
with them. And so how do you do that? Well, you kind of just go first. I mean, you step in and you're prepared to make deposits in that relationship in the
Mhm.
way you and I talk about it. And so that's how it starts,
Mhm.
is you show up first.
Well, and part of that is, bringing in Pablo Trujillo
Mhm.
is that in a very kind and transparent way, set the expectation
Mhm.
at the beginning. It's like,
Mhm.
this is what I expect and this is what I'm going to give.
Mhm.
This is what I expect and this is what you're going to get. Um and that it's about, we step forward as dealers. And when we're really clear about what we expect and that we're really clear about, hey, here's how we're going to be there to support you,
Mhm.
and then walk your talk, be there to
Yeah.
support them from the gate.
Yeah.
And then that's actually, there was a post I saw on, I think it was Success, and someone was talking about how uh how many of you have been experiencing that a customer feels like this is just a rental and it's just a loaner car? And I liked what Tommy Brandis, which we need to have him on the show
Yeah.
again sometime
Sure do.
soon. Um, uh, that Tommy Brandis said, "Hey, when you're really clear at the beginning about this is handing off the ownership of this car, and that and that you're really clear about what you expect, really transparent. This is being kind, but being like, this is this, and this is what's going to happen if this happens, and this is what's going to happen if this happens." That really sets a stage. It lays a foundation
Mhm.
on this being transparent, being fair, and being consistent, and all of that. That so as things happen, that you fall back on those things.
Sure.
Remember we talked about this?
Mhm.
Okay, so it is your responsibility, but here's what we can do
Yeah.
to try to help.
And I can't be sure how much of this, like, this is difficult stuff for us to train. Like, we talk about it
Mhm.
here because it's kind of a longer opportunity for us to explain.
Mhm.
But the other piece of this, it kind of ties to the humility piece, is sort of I would just call it a calmness. Like when you're in this place, and Tommy's a good example. Like when you're in this place where you genuinely care about your customers and you
Mhm.
expect success, and you're setting the customer up for success, then there are times that customers get upset.
Yep.
And so how we react to that has a lot to do with coming from this place of just being consistent, and we don't react, because we see a lot of that. And we'll talk later about kind of that Hollywood cowboy type and the sheriff. If you think about the Matt Dillon character, and how would Matt Dillon, you didn't see Matt Dillon running around screaming and
We just aged ourselves.
yeah, sorry. Somebody, you look him up. He's got to be on Google. But anyway,
or what's some of the other ones that are John Wayne?
yeah, probably same
Kind of thing.
time period. But yeah, you don't see those old Hollywood cowboys the same. But in the way that they were portrayed, they were generally, if we want to call them the good guys, if you will, then that's kind of what we think about. But they weren't. They were sharpshooters. I mean, they could shoot straight, and
only if needed.
And they weren't challenged very often. But only if needed. They tried to avoid a fight, and because they typically knew how it would end.
Yeah.
And so
and they were soft. They weren't like loud and all of that. They were the one that was just kind of calm and observant and like, this is the thing. And then there was the other piece that you keep bringing up. And as we've been talking about this with we were talking about being solid and being strong and having the ability to push the lever, to do the things that are like, this is hard. This might feel sharp, but to do the things. And we've talked an awful lot about like the analogy of the warrior, the peaceful warrior, right?
Yeah.
Where and I'll tell you, the one that I keep bringing up is that the samurai was one of the most skilled warriors in Japan, and knew that, and they were very principled. They were very, because they came from just a culture and a background where you speak your truth and to principled and all of that, had amazing ability to war if need be, to fight for those things but they were usually gardeners or something very peaceful and it's just like this is, I come from a quiet place, but know that if need be, that I know how to use this sword.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that in a lot of different contexts too, white hat way as well, is that this is the cowboy that has the ability to do the things that are hard, and the grit to do the things that are hard, the tools to do the things that are hard or that seem hard, but knows how to holster.
Yeah.
And
keep the sword in the sheath, using your samurai analogy. So if I think about that in the context of this white hat thing, it's like, whatever you might look at in a samurai and say that person, because of their sword, that you don't want to pick a fight with them. And so if I think about the white hat cowboy, what I think about is that good guy who when you see the white hat, that they mean you no harm. Okay. So if you think about, again, the old Western movies, typically they typically had, for just dramatic effect, they had the bad guys wearing black hats and probably riding black horses or whatever. So it's just kind of what it was. But really, to me, it's kind of, we mean you no harm. We're happy to be your neighbor. And so in our business of buy here, pay here, it's like, can we bring this white hat way approach to the business? Many of us do it. We see it. We see a lot of dealers out there, taking care of their customers and certainly trying to be, assets in their community. And so that's what we feel like the white hat thing is all about. So we're just out there trying to support you in that and spotlight those dealers who are doing that well, and, leading with transparency and humility and honesty, and trying to create a good experience for their employees and their customers. That's what the white hat thing is for us. And we're very much driven by that. Like, our commitment to that runs so deep. And so I think what you'll see is we're going to continue to kind of beat that drum, if you will. That's really where we belong. And we want to continue to talk about that and share those stories. Enough for today. It was just about kind of taking you inside just how deep those roots run for me. I mean, you're talking about, grandfather who passed away when I guess I was in my 20s or 30s. I don't remember. But anyway, he just was a rich amount of inspiration. I'm proud to have him in my ancestry, and it goes to the core.
And that one of these times I will share with you some of my history and how this means an awful lot to me as well.
Sure.
And so it runs deep for Jim, and it runs deep from my family
Yeah.
as well about being fair and being honest and being firm.
Yeah.
And
I should have warned. I think most people who tune in know that my emotions run pretty close to the surface.
Mine can too.
So
Where's the tissue?
Yeah. So kept it together, but
Yeah.
I didn't tell some of the stories that really it bring a lot of emotion for me. But yeah, I think you can see that this is a real thing for us. This is something that is just definitely it's nice. It feels good. I said this to somebody years ago. It feels great when you identify your purpose, you know where you belong in life, you know where you can help. And so that feels good. That and lets us lead from a place of purpose and heart and desire to leave the industry better than we found it. And so this is where we look forward to continuing to share this message. And we invite dealers to join us in kind of promoting the white hat concept.
And, we just, as we wrap up, we talk about straight lines, squiggly lines. We talk about head and heart. And we talk about white hat way is those things combined. It's having the straight lines and having the heart and combining those two things into something that can be very powerful in business. Again, this is foundational to everything that we have built and everything that we are building. And this is the thing that we, as we move forward, it's our founding principles. And you'll hear more and more about that. And that there are so many people out there that are so fantastic with teaching straight lines and teaching those kind of things. And we do that as well. We are just really bringing forward the other side of this, the heart side, the squiggly line side.
Well, and I think where it ties to the straight lines piece of this is I always say that, and when we work with dealers, I've been saying this for years. I wrote an article years ago about the third P that I called it. And that time I was talking philosophy, but I think in this case, we could use principle, because I say that really when we start building a business, when we write our policies and procedures, when we can start from a place of principles, let's write the principles first. That, it's much more than a business plan. It's much more than a mission statement. I'm talking about creating your whole business founded on some principles. And we hope this white hat way can serve as a foundation for a lot of people. If they don't use it exactly in this way, just the premise of operating your business first from principle and then building everything else on top of that. That helps you to be more sustainable, create a business that is going to live a long time and be built on something that can stick around. And
with many of the people that we coach, especially if they're new to the industry, it's like that principle piece is one of the first questions we ask. And it is wrapped into, how do you want to be known in your community?
Sure. Because it helps us to,
because if you can define that, then all the other things will go through that filter. And so, and how you want to be known in your community, what your principles are the things that your team knows and they understand and they buy into, and that when you show up at work, that those are your guiding principles, and that your team does not see you stray from those too. And so,
So I think what I'll do is, we didn't get a chance to put our photos together. So what I'll do is I'll go to LinkedIn and to my Facebook profile, and I'll add those photos along with a little short explanation about those, with the photos of Grandpa Pablo. And so you kind of have a little point of reference and see the face behind the name, and get a little understanding.
And understand a little bit about Jim. And
we'll get those out there. But I appreciate you folks tuning in and indulging us in this way, so we could kind of share a little bit about what makes us tick.
White Hat Wednesday. It's always going to be just a little bit on the mushy side. Maybe something. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. Again, Friday, we've got Chuck Bonanno, and we're really excited to have him. And thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. We'll talk to y'all later.